So let's go ahead and talk about the upcoming CBA. I don't know when this CBA expires. It's got to be soon. I'm thinking after this season. If I recall correctly, it's after this upcoming season there will be new CBA negotiations. But report NBA's new CBA expected to lower draft age, create mental health designation. The NBA and the Players Association are expected to agree to lower the draft eligibility age from 19 to 18 as they negotiate a new CBA. Sources told The Athletic's Shams Charania. For those listening, this is from thescore.com, written by Lior Kozai. Um, I think that's how you pronounce his name. NBA Twitter member as well, so shout out to him. The two sides are also expected to create a new way for players to cite mental health issues that is similar to how the league handles physical injuries, among other changes. The change in draft eligibility would allow high school players to make the leap directly to the NBA. The current rules, which were established in '05, require selected players to be at least 19 years old during the calendar year of the draft. Silver said in July that he was hopeful the next CBA would lower the age of draft eligibility. Silver had previously suggesting increasing the age of eligibility to 20, but said he changed his mind due to the rise of NIL deals and the potential for the league to help players off the court from a younger age. A mental health designation would allow players to manage mental health issues with the same seriousness as a listed physical injury, including when seeking treatment. The proposal follows increased awareness of and discussion about mental health around the league. Current Brooklyn Nets star Ben Simmons told the 76ers shortly before last season that he wasn't mentally ready to play, which contributed to Simmons missing significant time. Other players, including DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love, opened up in recent years about their own mental health issues. Officials from the league and the Players Association will meet in person this week as they continue to discuss the new CBA ahead of the December 15th mutual opt-out deadline. Another major issue is negotiation in luxury tax penalties. The NBA and some team governors are expected to push for more severe tax penalties, Sharanya reports, although both sides may be interested in changing the tax structure generally. I don't give a fuck about the luxury tax structure. I mean, listen, if you want these guys to pay out of pocket more, that's fine. As long as they don't like totally eliminate the luxury tax, I think we'll be good. You should be able to pay your guys if you want to win and if you're okay with paying out of pocket. I don't have any issues with that. Of course, that's all theoretical. I would have to see the proposal that they come up with, but this is not about the tax system. This is about making strides to abolish a rule that many people think fucking sucks. Maybe not many, but the one and done rule is, I don't think it's as divisive. There are pros and there are cons to having the one and done rule, but ultimately I think that allowing players to jump to the NBA straight out of high school is the best possible decision. Allow them to make that leap if they want to, but don't penalize them or punish them for not, which the NBA never did anyway. It was open to guys like Kwame Brown, Kevin Garnett, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, a whole list of guys. Dwight Howard, Brandon Jennings was the last guy to actually do it, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So as it stands, people who I guess are in favor of the one and done rule, I guess they like it because it forces players to go to college and to mature a little bit before getting to the NBA, which I guess is a good thing, but players nowadays are significantly more matured. High school players or younger players in general are significantly more matured because of their amplified exposure thanks to social media. That plays a tremendous role in helping kids advance like mentally and professionally because you're just so easily accessible. I mean, Bronny James and Mikey Williams are in high school and have millions of Instagram followers. So they are already more advanced mentally and professionally. And even to that point, it's also kind of moot because basketball, at least at the grassroots level, has grown so much over the last decade and a half. or so, that kids are in the NBA ecosystem at a tremendously young age. Like like early teens and preteens, being exposed to professional level talent, just exposed to professional players, whether it be through camps or through recruiting camps, AAU. There is no reason to still have the one and done rule other than just like bureaucracy and catering to college programs, because especially in recent years there's been such a rise in players foregoing college entirely because it's not fucking worth it. It wasn't fucking worth it for guys to go to college, play a year, earn no earn no money legally, I guess, and just essentially waste a year just because they have to. Guys like LaMelo Ball, Emmanuel Mudiay, even though he didn't pan out in college, Darius Baisley as well, going to the G League. Like, there's just so much opportunity for players now. More guys are going to the G League out of high school. More guys are going overseas out of high school because, like, when you're at a certain level, when you're at when you're a premier high school player and you're trying to develop into the best player you can be, going to college might not be the right choice for you, because if you go to a powerhouse school, you're not going to get the same development, like at least in game, because there's politics, there's the coach wanting to win, obviously, and you have to share touches with so many other talented players, which of course isn't a bad thing. But why not go to the G League, or why not go overseas and be exposed to professional level talent for 6, 7, 8 months, as opposed to going to college and then also being able to earn an actual paycheck. And now college athletes are allowed to make money off their likeness, which is great, but there's opportunity now. And I think the NBA is recognizing this, that, hey, the one and done rule, we have to work on a framework to abolish it. Now, Woj pointed out recently that the the abolition of the one and done rule, while it can happen on paper or through like a gentleman's agreement, won't legally be able to happen for a few years at least, because he mentioned that a lot of the agreements for future draft picks are under this under 19 framework. So they would have to iron out all of those. But I think that allowing players to go to the NBA as early as possible, and I think 18 is the perfect age, because like you are considered an adult and there isn't that threat of being dominated by a grown man like there is in football, where if you're an 18-year-old going to the NFL, you are getting turned into a pretzel. There are grown men who get turned into pretzels by NFL players. Your body is still maturing. Biologically, you're not fully grown, so it's just a huge recipe for disaster. Whereas the NBA, there isn't that strain. It's a lower contact sport, and size doesn't really play as big of a factor. But I think the NBA is coming to this conclusion because there are more players who are just not going the traditional route, which I think is great. As I already mentioned, there was LaMelo Ball. Thon Maker did not go the traditional route, although there was a lot of like weirdness that happened with his situation, like reclassifying and then having to prove that he was 1 year removed from high school. Like, that's such a fucking bullshit rule, and there really is no reason for it. I have yet to find anyone who makes a compelling enough argument for the one and done rule. And you also have to look at it economically, and especially now with the way that rookie contracts are set up, dozens of kids who are standout talents in high school are coming from economic hardships. Their families are dealing with economic hardships. Them being able to go to the NBA and start making millions of dollars for their family is an offer that a lot of them will not turn down, even if their career doesn't pan out, even if they're out of the league in 3 years. If you're able to make $10 million, that is a life-changing money. And you can always go back to school. You can always go back to school once your career is over and study something like economics or biology or math or engineering. These guys will not sacrifice that payday for an education at that point in their lives. Like, it's just the compassionate thing to do. If you're able to help uplift this kid's family earlier than previous, you do that. You do that. And that's why like prep to pro was such a prominent thing. Like, you look at someone like LeBron James, who came from, a difficult upbringing. Of course, he was exceptionally talented as well. Like, his talent was never in question. But going to college, I don't think was ever in his mind because, one, he didn't need to. Very clearly, LeBron did not have to go to college. But, like, the payday is almost too hard to pass up. And, of course, everybody's situation is different. We are going to run into this issue where there are a lot of guys who are throwing their names into the NBA draft and not getting selected, but that's also like not the end of the world because at least I think this is how it is. Even if you don't go to college, as long as you don't hire an agent, you still maintain your eligibility for the NCAA. So the whole idea of this is to leave the decision in the hand of the player. And the one and done rule does not fully do that. Okay? It does not allow the player to decide to go straight to the NBA. Like, they're going to weigh the consequences of their actions. That's on them. And I'm sure they know, especially if they are a premier talent and they're involved in NBA circles, or if they're from a city like St. Louis or Chicago and they're getting mentorship from somebody like Bradley Beal or Jason Tatum or Anthony Davis or Patrick Beverley. They know what they're doing. So shout out to the NBA for inching closer to doing this. I think that 18, as long as you're 18, see, this gets a little weird with like guys who have late birthdays and won't be 18 at the time that they graduate. I myself, I have a late birthday. I have an October birthday. So if I'm going back to 2014 when I graduated high school, I would not be old enough to go to the NBA, I think. If they're going to require draft age eligibility to be 18, you are going to kind of cuck the players who have late birthdays. But then again, that's something that you understand. And let's keep in mind that not every premier talent is still going to go to the NBA right away. Like, it's not like there's going to be this influx of high school seniors who are entering the draft pool. There are going to be a handful, probably like a dozen to a dozen and a half, who think this is the appropriate decision. But I do think now, especially that athletes can make money off of their likeness and still play college ball, there are still going to be a lot of kids who decide to go to college, which, like, it can't hurt. And also, college exposure is still the best way to have NBA organizations be confident in your ability. There are a lot of unknown factors when a player doesn't go to college because, like, they're not going up against the same level of competition as some other guys. It's not as bad. The G League, it's the scouting in the G League is not as bad, or at least the looking down upon G League players is not as bad because, again, in that scenario, you're going against professional level players. So you might even look better to scouts because you are going up against premier talent. The sooner the NBA abolishes the one and done rule, the better. It's way overdue. And the second thing that they talked about here was mental health issues being treated with the same protocol as physical injuries, which includes, I believe, seeking second opinions and also undergoing psychiatric treatment, which is great. We are still at this spot in society where mental health issues are severely downplayed in comparison to physical issues, and even physical issues are downplayed tremendously, where it's like, oh, just play through it. That whole fucking dumbass meathead mentality where it's like you played through injuries. Like, yeah, you play through injuries if you want to fuck up your longevity. Like, yeah, do that. But I think it's appropriate to finally have this shift on the perception of mental health, especially since basketball on social media is huge and players are more accessible than really like anybody else. You have A-list celebrities like LeBron James and Steph Curry who can read their comments on Instagram. You have someone like Ben Simmons, also a high profile celebrity, was fucking going out with a Kardashian. I mean, she was a Jenner, so I guess like whatever. Who was going out with a member of the Kardashian family? Same thing with Devin Booker. Like these guys who are literally baby. We are the same age. Fucking insane to think about. And Ben Simmons, this psychopath, is on Twitch playing Call of Duty. Now I didn't watch. I don't know if he had chat disabled or if chat was in sub only mode. But like, just think about that. Think about how fucking accessible you are now as a professional athlete. You're not like Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie who just exist in this fucking weird world of the Hollywood elites where like you don't have access to your social media, where you are not seeing anything that people are saying about you. Athletes in general, their mental health is overlooked 100%. And it's because people just feel like they can talk shit to these guys because they're not perceived as humans. They're perceived as almost extraterrestrial beings because you see them on the basketball court and it's like, oh, this is their job. Like, yeah, obviously. Like they don't pick up on anything. They don't perceive anything. But it's like that's their job for 2 hours a night. And then they go back to being a functioning member of society. They do be getting bullied straight up. And if you think that that doesn't take a toll on them, then you're fucking up. You're fucking up. So, and obviously everything that happened with Ben Simmons, I mean, I say this over and over again, sports fans in general, we deserve absolutely nothing. We are just scumbags. We are the worst. We have immense brain disease. We are the worst people, and we project that onto others. Obviously, I'm generalizing here for the joke because because this is supposed to be lighthearted. I'm generalizing here, but there are a lot of fucking douchebag sports fans out there. I mean, just look at the dudes in the Garden who like spat on Trae Young, or people who go see the Celtics play and be calling dudes the N-word. Like, there are a lot of shitty sports fans out there. And again, being exposed to that routinely takes a toll on people. And NBA players are always out there. They're always on. They're on social media. Like, they can't get away from it. It's part of the job at this point. So I'm glad that the NBA is taking that a little bit more seriously. Ultimately, like that's a minor inclusion that I think it'll be a very much appreciated quality of life improvement for NBA players, knowing that if they are dealing with something, it will be treated appropriately.